Hello, everybody. It is a pleasure to be speaking to you today. My name is Farina. I am a senior customer success manager at UserGems. Today, my session will be covering the topic of data-driven CS or the data-driven CSM. So I can go ahead and walk you through the deck I've got prepared here. All right, so agenda for this session. Quickly, I just want to give everyone a quick intro to what UserGems is, just so you have the context of what we're all about and the kind of value we're trying to deliver to clients on our CS team. I'll talk a little bit more about our tech stack at CS and our workflow, and essentially how we pull that all together and really apply the data-driven mentality to our CS processes. Alrighty, so what is UserGems? And certainly far from a pitch here, but more so just want to give you the context of what we're all about at UserGems. Essentially, we're a third-party application within Salesforce, and what we do is automatically track customers' relevant contacts for job changes, and then we surface those as warm leads to hopefully increase the buying intent and make it a little bit easier for sales teams to have those conversations. And so you can see in this example here, the tool really just does exactly what I explained. We provide the new job information along with the past job information. So that's very easy for sales teams to be able to contact this person in a new role and talk about their experience with their product in their previous role. So in terms of our tech stack at UserGems, first and foremost, we are a Salesforce shop. And I think, a lot of organizations talk about how they want everything to flow through Salesforce. And luckily, that really is the case with us at UserGems. It's our centralized location for all of our customer data. Everything is flowing through our Salesforce instance. And that's kind of how we keep tabs on all of our customer information. And then from there, we've got a few integrations in place that allow us to really put data behind our processes. So the first tool that I want to talk about is Scratchpad. We use this for easily managing CRM updates and managing customer hygiene. It allows us to make these updates really quickly on the fly. We'll often just pop it open during a call, and I'll show you some examples in just a moment. But it allows us to keep tabs very, very easily. Where in Salesforce, if you're clicking between contacts and accounts to make updates, it can be pretty time consuming. We're also using our own product in our data-driven approach. So as I mentioned, UserGems automatically surface new leads for job changers, but it also flags when our champions leave customer accounts. And so from the CS side, that's probably the most relevant use case. Kind of knowing right away when our champions leave is tremendously helpful for us, and using the data that we have to surface that automatically is pretty key. And then last but not least, we are using Churn Zero as our CS software. And we use this for things like managing customer journeys, assessing churn likelihood, so essentially health scores, and also triggering automation within the tool. Alrighty, so quick dive into our tech stack just a little bit further so you can understand how the flow works ultimately. But essentially, like I said, everything for us is flowing through Salesforce. So since we are a Salesforce integration, we actually don't even have our own UI at this point, and we did that by design. The idea is that this should just sit on top of someone's existing Salesforce, and so that's the case with us. And what we do is we have a few different sections that are essentially used for relevant triggers later on when it comes to automating some of our conversations with clients. So starting on the left side here on the account object, this is where we house our customer status section, and that has all the relevant manual fields that we update continuously for things like tracking customer onboarding, making sure we're keeping tabs on milestones and progress. And so you can see some examples of where they're at in the launch stage, what their integration looks like, other important maintenance milestones, like if we've done a training, if there's QBR completed, things like that. And then on the custom account health object, so this is one that we created on our side. Essentially, we have our backend data piping in continuously to this object that is associated with the account. And so you can kind of think of this as a way of bringing raw data into Salesforce and assigning it to the specified fields depending on what the criteria is. And then from there, what we do is under the customer health metrics section on the account object, we essentially bring that all together, simplify those metrics, and kind of just surface all of the things that we know are relevant for assessing client health, things like ROI that we can see on our side, along with usage metrics. So it's very much a consolidated version of the raw data that comes in through the account health section. And so this is where all the customer data starts, but we also have methods in place for kind of managing all of this information. and that's where Scratchpad comes in. So this first view on the left side, you can see I have a list of all of my accounts. And what I'm able to do here on the fly, when I get on a client call, I can just pop open this grid view and I can easily update steps as I go along. So for example, if I know that a client's kind of moved along in the onboarding phase, I can update that specifically in the specified field here. I can also mark certain milestones off as we complete trainings, as they hit certain achievements. Very easy for me to do that. I also log my notes in the CS update section, which then creates a log of all the quick notes. So I know for CSMs, that's something that's a bit challenging, being able to continuously take client notes, popping open the right area. But this is kind of our one-stop shop to have open during our client calls. And then something else we do in Scratchpad is you can also set up a contact grid. So I've got all of my contacts in this view, and I'm able to assign specific UserGems roles. And these are super important for us because essentially I use them and the team uses them to trigger automated emails at different points, depending on what their role is in the organization, right? So giving them a specified role within the onboarding team so that you know when you should use that person to send different pieces of communication. Okay, and then Churn Zero, this is our CS software. It allows us to cut our customer data into segments and filter on certain criteria, basically just grouping similar data together. And from there, we can use those segments to trigger alerts or start plays, which are essentially a series of automated actions, or we can progress a customer through a journey, such as the onboarding journey. And we also determine our churn or health scores here as well. And then lastly, UserGems. The way that we use this is essentially with the UserGems package. What we do when we track our relevant contacts is if they change jobs and our algorithm picks it up, we flag them as no longer at company. So we have a whole list of job changers that leave our customer organizations, and we know pretty much immediately when that happens. And ultimately, that is also used as a trigger for us later on. So in terms of being a data-driven CSM, what are some of the benefits of putting data at the heart of CS processes? I mean, I think there's obviously countless that can come to mind here, but just a few examples that I'm going to cover off. And some key CS words are first, accuracy, right? We're able to create very trustworthy health and churn scores based on keeping clean customer data. Another one is visibility. So we're able to manage journeys and track milestones across a large book of business. Something else is proactivity, a big keyword in customer success, one that I love. Is triggering automated alerts, tasks, and emails, right? It's hard to find that time to be proactive in CS a lot of the time. So to trigger automated pieces of communication where you can is huge. And then lastly, awareness, right? So there's a lot of movement, especially nowadays with this mass resignation going on. Being able to track your champions as they leave is a huge advantage to have, especially with this phenomenon that seems to happen where you're coming up on a renewal and your champion leaves and you had no idea about it, right? It's good to have that site there. Alrighty, so in terms of creating trustworthy health scores, we do it by bucketing into 4 different categories, and these really help us get accuracy with our health scores. We've seen really good results in terms of validating the actual accuracy here. And so the first thing we look at for us is ROI. Obviously, sometimes this is a metric that's harder to track in other organizations. For us, luckily, we can kind of see closed opportunities that come from our product. So it's a very easy indication for us to surface and talk about. We look at usage and adoption, also coming from Salesforce, from that account health object that I mentioned. It's all piping through there, so we can see all of the relevant usage and adoption metrics, and then we can pipe those into Churn Zero to calculate our churn score. Within Churn Zero, you also have the ability to do some surveying, so you can send out NPS surveys directly, and those can be a factor in your churn score. And then the last one is engagement. So another nice feature about Churn Zero is that you can see the last time an email was sent or how many emails have been sent, however you want to kind of go about breaking that out. Hugely helpful when kind of trying to track your level of communication or engagement with the client. Okay, so in terms of managing journeys and tracking milestones, you get clear visibility around important customer journeys such as onboarding. Here's an example of how we're doing it. For example, we start in Scratchpad and we update the status as we go. But what happens then is they're entered into a journey and they are then set to complete a few different milestones. And the nice thing about kind of visualizing this data and updating it quickly in Scratchpad is we can see an overview very easily of where different clients are in the journey, who needs a nudge in the right direction, who's falling behind, who's on track. And this can also ultimately impact health scores on the success side. In terms of triggering automated alerts, tasks, and emails, this is such a great way to be able to be proactive with your clients. It's hard when you're managing a big book of business. You're also doing your follow-up, you're doing onboardings. So being proactive isn't easy, but you can certainly do that when you use data and you leverage data to trigger these automatically. So one example of one that we're doing is we have an ROI trigger that also includes an advocacy request. And so as you can see up here in this first screenshot, basically what happens is we create a segment in Churn Zero. And when they match that segment as a customer, so if their ROI multiplier hits between 10 and 20x, they get added to this play automatically. And then we get an email triggered to say, hey, send a congrats email to this client. They hit 10 to 20x. We send it as a role owner, so whoever owns the account sends it. And we can send it to our list of contacts who are sponsors and champions. So this is where the UserGems roles on Scratchpad comes into play. I've got my executive sponsors and champions defined. So I can say all of the accounts, all of the executive sponsors and champions from this account, make sure this email goes to them. And then from there, you can draft up the email, drop in different tokens and variables. So you don't even have to plug anything in manually. It should all be coming in automatically. As a CSM, all I need to do when this achievement is hit is review, make sure everything looks good, and I can send this out. And because I know this is a big milestone, 10 to 20x, I'm also asking here for some customer advocacy, talking about doing a case study together. Use these moments and these milestones to ask for those feedback and those helpful use cases from clients. And this is an easy way to do it. Another one is our monthly performance summary. So once they qualify and hit all of the data needed to trigger this, on each month, we will send out a full summary of all of their performance metrics. We give them all the details of their license usage in the email that's generated, so they know how many credits they've used, what pace they're using them at. They also see what their return on investment is, so we can start sharing things around their direct ops that were created from UserGems, the direct pipeline, close won opportunities, ROI, and that's all piped in automatically again. And this is something that I don't need to worry about. It's created monthly for me. I just come in and review, and if it looks good, I can send it out. Next one is low outreach. So if you think about a usage KPI metric, this one's pretty helpful for us. So we have a benchmark of 35% for our clients to reach out to at least 35% of their UserGems job change leads. So what happens is if they go below that number, they hit this first segment, so they automatically enter this play. But I also have an exit criteria in place that says if they leave this segment, take them out. And then what happens is there's a waiting period of 30 days to send this email. So it's only if they're in this group for over 30 days, this email will go out, at which point the email is saying, hey, notice your outreach rate has been below benchmark of 35% for at least 30 days. Here's your current outreach rate. Here's what I recommend you do to start increasing this. And so you'll see better results. And obviously, of course, offering to get on a call and talk through this in real time as well. And then the last one here, tracking champion movement. So this is our UserGems use case. What we do is also we set an alert to be sent to our CSMs if the flag UserGems no longer at company is true. So that's a field in Salesforce. So very simply, we created a segment that says, if UG no longer at company field on our contacts is not empty, meaning there's a value, it's true, then create this alert that essentially sends us an email and tells us, hey, your contact token name at token company has left their job. Make sure you're either A, reaching out to them in their new role, because obviously they've moved to a new organization. So there could be a potential cross-sell going on there, and also kind of troubleshooting with your existing account or the account they left from to make sure you have all the motions in place to be able to cover the renewal, continue conversations, and kind of cover off on that gap. And like I said, I think there's this crazy phenomenon that happens in the world of CS. Champions leave right before a renewal. So this is a really helpful trigger for us to be able to know exactly when this happens so we don't miss out on these things. Alrighty, that's all I had. If you have any questions for me, you can certainly drop them into the chat. Otherwise, I think we've got about 50 seconds left. Alrighty. I think we're pretty much all set here then. Thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully this was helpful. I think kind of the moral of the story is here, no matter how small your organization is, how large, putting data at the heart of your CS conversations is always going to be hugely helpful. It saves me a ton of time. So make sure you're kind of setting up these processes, whatever stage you're in, because it helps you be proactive in your CS outreach.